The city was drenched in the glow of the setting sun as Maya sat by the window of her favorite cafe, absently stirring her coffee. The hum of the city's evening rush surrounded her, but her mind was far away, lost in memories that were as vivid as they were bittersweet. It had been years since she last saw him, Liam, the man who had once been her everything. They had met in the most unexpected of ways, both caught in a summer rainstorm, huddled under the same small awning outside a bookshop. At first, it was just laughter shared over their soaked clothes and the absurdity of being strangers bound by fate on a rainy day. But as they talked, something unexplainable sparked between them, something neither of them had anticipated. Maya was practical, organized, and always thinking 10 steps ahead. Liam was the opposite, carefree, spontaneous, living for the moment. It should have never worked, but somehow, it did. They brought out the best in each other, she grounded him, and he reminded her to embrace the joys of the present. The years they spent together were filled with passion, adventures, and countless late-night conversations. They'd often talk about their dreams, their fears, and their future. One evening, while watching the stars on the roof of their old apartment, they made a promise to each other: no matter where life takes us, we'll always find our way back to each other. But life, as it often does, had other plans. Liam had been offered a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a photography assignment that would take him across the world, capturing the beauty and resilience of people living in the most remote corners of the earth. It was everything he had ever wanted, but it meant leaving behind the life they had built together. Maya, always the supportive one, encouraged him to follow his dreams, even though it broke her heart to see him go. 6 months, Liam had promised, his hands gently cradling her face. 6 months, and I'll be back. We can pick up right where we left off. She had kissed him goodbye at the airport, watching him disappear beyond the security gate, her heart heavy with a mixture of pride and sorrow. But as days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the calls became less frequent, and the distance between them grew wider. Maya tried to stay hopeful, clinging to the memory of his promise, but as the 6th month came and went, reality set in. Sometimes, love isn't enough to bridge the gap created by time and distance. One evening, after nearly a year of waiting, Maya received a letter in the mail. It was from Liam, written in his familiar, messy scrawl. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the pages, her eyes filling with tears as she read his words. Maya, I'm so sorry. I thought I could do this, I thought I could be away from you and still be okay. But the more I stayed, the more I got lost in this world I was capturing. I kept telling myself I would come back to you, but somewhere along the way, I realized I was losing you, losing us. I never meant for it to happen like this. I don't know how to come back now. I've changed, and I fear we've changed too. But I will always, always love you. The letter was dated 3 months ago. Maya had cried herself to sleep that night, the weight of broken promises suffocating her. She tried to move on, to let go, but the ghost of Liam lingered in every corner of her life. She buried herself in her work, tried dating again, but nothing could fill the void he had left behind. Now, 3 years later, as she sat in that cafe, she wondered if she had ever truly let him go. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the bustling city, and for a moment, everything felt just like it had on that rainy day when they first met. A soft chime sounded as the door to the cafe opened, but Maya paid it no mind. She was lost in her thoughts, sipping her now cold coffee. But then, a voice she had once known better than her own whispered her name. Maya. Her heart stopped. She turned, and there he was, Liam, standing in the doorway, his eyes searching for hers. He looked different, there were more lines on his face, his hair was a bit longer, but those eyes, those deep, soulful eyes, were the same. Maya's breath caught in her throat. Liam. He walked over slowly, almost as if he were afraid she might vanish. I wasn't sure if you'd be here. I had to try, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Maya felt a wave of emotions crash over her, anger, relief, heartbreak, and something else she couldn't quite name. Why now? She asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. After all this time? Liam sat down across from her, his hands trembling slightly. I couldn't stop thinking about you, he confessed. I tried to move on, but no matter where I went, it was always you. I thought maybe we could try again. Maya looked down at her hands, the weight of their shared past pressing down on her. We made a promise, she said softly. But we couldn't keep it. How do we even begin to pick up the pieces after everything that happened? Liam reached out, covering her hands with his own. I don't know, he admitted, tears welling in his eyes. But I'm willing to try if you are. Maya stared at him, her heart torn between the pain of the past and the hope of a future that seemed just out of reach. Could they really rebuild what they had lost? Or was it too late? The cafe buzzed around them, the world moving on as if their moment of reunion wasn't as earth-shattering as it felt to them. Maya sat there in silence, her mind racing. She wanted to protect herself from being hurt again, but at the same time, seeing Liam in front of her awakened feelings she had tried so hard to bury. The weight of everything they had been through hung heavy in the air between them. Finally, she took a deep breath and met his gaze. Liam, you broke me, she said, her voice breaking. I waited for you, and every day I hoped that you would come back. And then, just when I thought I could move on, you show up again. Liam's eyes filled with pain. I know, Maya. I know I hurt you, and I've hated myself every day for it. But I was lost, and I thought staying away was better than coming back and ruining your life even more. Maya looked away, the familiar ache in her chest making it hard to breathe. And now? What's changed, Liam? How can I trust that you won't leave again? He reached out, gently turning her face back toward him. Because I'm not lost anymore, he said softly. I've been searching for something out there, but I realized that the only thing I ever truly wanted was right here. She searched his eyes, trying to see if he was truly sincere. For a moment, they just stared at each other, the cafe sounds fading into a distant blur. And then, to her surprise, Maya felt a tear slide down her cheek. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice barely more than a whisper. I don't think I could survive losing you again. Liam's expression softened, and he leaned closer, his voice raw with emotion. Then let me prove it to you. Let me show you every single day that I'm here to stay. I'm not asking for everything right now. I just want a chance. Maya closed her eyes, trying to steady herself. There was so much pain, but beneath it all, there was still that flicker of love that had never really gone away. Slowly, she nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. One chance, Liam, she said, her voice shaky. But if you walk away again, it'll be the last time. A look of relief washed over his face, and for the first time in years, he smiled that boyish smile that had once melted her heart. I promise, he whispered, this time, it's forever. They stayed in the cafe long after it closed, talking, laughing, and, for the first time in years, allowing themselves to dream again. It wouldn't be easy to rebuild what they had lost, but as they walked out into the cool night air, hand in hand, both of them knew that the hardest battles were often the most worthwhile. Maya looked up at Liam, the city lights dancing in his eyes, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could keep this promise after all. The night air wrapped around them as they stepped out of the cafe. It was crisp and cool, with the scent of rain lingering from an earlier drizzle. For a moment, they simply stood there, holding hands, almost afraid to let go as if they might wake up and realize this was just another dream. But it wasn't. Liam was here, and Maya could feel the warmth of his hand, the slight pressure as he squeezed hers, as if to reassure her he wasn't going anywhere. "Would you walk with me for a bit?" Liam asked, his voice soft but hopeful. Maya hesitated for only a second before nodding. They began to walk, their steps in sync, the city lights flickering like fireflies around them. As they walked, they talked about the years they had lost. Liam told her about the places he had seen, villages nestled in mountains, sunsets that painted the sky with colors that couldn't be captured in a photograph, and people whose stories had changed him in ways he never imagined. But for every story he shared, there was a hint of sadness, a silent acknowledgement of what he had sacrificed in chasing those dreams. "I thought I was finding myself out there," he admitted quietly, as they turned a corner into a quieter street lined with trees. "But the more I traveled, the more I realized I was just running, from you, from us, from the fear that I'd never be enough." Maya listened, her heart aching for the man she had loved and the struggles he had faced alone. "I never needed you to be perfect, Liam," she said softly. "I just needed you to be there." He stopped walking, turning to face her. The street was empty, the distant hum of the city fading away as they found themselves in their own little world. "I know that now," he said, his voice breaking. "I've made so many mistakes, Maya. But if you'll let me, I want to spend the rest of my life making it up to you." Maya's eyes glistened with unshed tears. She could hear the sincerity in his voice, see the vulnerability in his eyes. This was a different Liam, the man who had grown, who had faced his demons, and who was finally ready to be the partner she had always deserved. Without thinking, she reached up and touched his face, her thumb brushing against the stubble on his cheek. "I've missed you so much," she whispered, her voice filled with years of pent-up longing. Before she could say anything else, Liam leaned in, capturing her lips in a kiss that was both tender and urgent, filled with all the emotions they had kept bottled up for years. It was like coming home after being lost at sea, familiar, comforting, and exactly where they were meant to be. As they pulled away, breathless and overwhelmed, Liam rested his forehead against hers. "I love you, Maya. I've never stopped." Maya's tears finally spilled over, but this time, they were tears of relief, of hope, of the beginning of something new. "I love you too, Liam," she whispered, a smile breaking through her tears. "I always have." The night was still, the city around them buzzing with life, but in that moment, it was just the two of them, standing together in the glow of the streetlights. They knew it wouldn't be easy, there would be old wounds to heal, trust to rebuild, and challenges they couldn't even foresee. But for the first time in years, they were both ready to face it all, together. Hand in hand, they continued to walk, the city unfolding before them like a map of possibilities. And as they disappeared into the night, one thing was clear, they were no longer bound by the past, but instead, free to create a future where promises were kept, hearts were healed, and love, finally, had found its way back home. The end.